So basically, most are just trying to protect themselves, in essence. But the outcome, it's still the same. So another area that I see a lot of challenges in, and this does apply here to our community as well, is rural communities. We know that in rural communities, we know that resources can be very limited, right? We know that there's not a lot of funds to go around, etc., or allegedly. But we also know that people know each other. And we also know that reporting can feel very personal. We also know that a lot of certain people do not want their name brought up within these conversations, right? They could be a child of someone, or they could be the brother of someone, etc. We have to overcome that, okay? We have to hold them accountable. Because in my opinion, anyone who is protecting an offender, a predator, is also an offender as well. If you're going to make the decision to actually protect an offender or a predator, that makes you just as guilty, in my opinion. So oftentimes there's a lot of other different pressures that take place, protecting relationships, keeping things quiet, etc. But in smaller communities, accountability can become much more complicated. And that's basically also where systems can actually weaken as well. Again, we have to hold everyone accountable, and we also have to make sure that this stays public and goes public. Because again, predators don't want to be exposed, and I guarantee it, those who protect them also don't want to be exposed either. So victim realities, what are those? Well, when it comes to a victim, victims often delay reporting. We know that victims also maintain contact with offenders. We know that. We also struggle to explain this very clearly. A lot of times we don't understand why a victim will choose to maintain contact with an offender. Well, a lot of times these offenders, you got to realize these offenders have groomed them into a trusting relationship. A lot of times these victims will also second guess themselves as well. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I took it the wrong way. Maybe that's not what it really meant. So one of the things is that when it comes to trauma, trauma impacts the memory, it impacts behavior, but it also impacts communication. So it's our job to send the message that we don't expect victims to be perfect. They do not have to be perfect at all. But trauma, we also want to push the fact that trauma does not produce perfect behavior. We'll see different behaviors and actions come out in many other different ways. So most offenders, I will tell you, most offenders have a history. They have patterns to them already. A lot of times we just didn't know what to look for. It may not always be documented very clearly, but there's many, many different warning signs. I'm not going to be able to go into them within this presentation, so I don't take up a lot of time, but I will tell you that there's many different warning signs, and there are many different prior concerns. Once an offender has already been exposed by someone who's filing a report, if you look back in that offender's history, you'll start seeing the other episodes, the other behaviors, the other red flags that were actually missed. And I will tell you that a lot of parents, oftentimes, a lot of parents feel guilty about that. A lot of caregivers will feel guilty about that. They will oftentimes think, well, I should have known. Well, you have to understand that a lot of parents and caregivers have also been groomed as well. So we have to start where we are with these cases and continue to work forward. So how do systems get exploited? Well, systems, predators actually study systems the same way that they study victims. They test the boundaries, they watch how people respond, and then they adjust their behaviors accordingly in order to blend in order to fit in. They often rely on delayed action, doubt, and lack of coordination. Those are the three keys. So when we're looking at a system, whether it's the school systems, the criminal justice system, whatever that may be, we have to be able to identify these weak points. That's why we need experts coming into our education systems and identifying these weak points. We need them to come into our criminal justice systems and identify these weak places, these weak spots. and after-school programs, community systems, sports, etc., right? Because I guarantee it, even if we was to look at an organization that organizes youth sports for the summer, we would find the weak systems, right? We would find the weak spots. And that's what we need to begin doing.